welcome to Cotton On. My name is Lorna. This is my podcast. This week's video is going to be talking about the Perfect Fit Socks course, which is an online course hosted by Natalie from Knitty Natty. So I signed up for this course in February because I had tried to teach myself with other YouTube videos about how to knit socks. And I kind of understood the process, but they weren't the greatest fitting. They were often too loose in the cuff and the leg, and I struggled with getting the length right of the foot. And I also wasn't a huge fan of the heel flap and gusset method for making a heel. I'd been watching Natalie's YouTube videos for quite a while at this point and saw that she was a big sock knitter and really liked the Fish Lips Kiss heel pattern that's available on Ravelry. So I thought that this would be a really good opportunity to try and upskill myself and learn something new, hopefully, through knitting socks. So the course is about to come up for re-enrolment for new people. So I thought this would be a good time to show you the video diary that I kept. So the course was released in 6 weekly instalments, and each week I recorded my thoughts and my progress and what I was doing for the class as kind of homework, and I'm showing my experience of the videos. So this video is sharing what happened each week, so you'll get to see my experience of doing the course because it is quite an investment. And then at the end, I can show you the socks that I made from the course and give you my final thoughts. So I have done week one's tasks. So this week we had some videos to watch about kind of the basics of sock making and how to take measurements and things, and also knitting a gauge swatch. So I never knitted a gauge swatch before for socks. I've done it for things like jumpers, but we had to make one. And we had lots of advice on the composition of your yarn. So we're using 4-ply or fingering weight, as the Americans call it. So we had advice on if we were using different types of yarn that should impact which needle size you choose. So I chose a 4-ply from Wildflower Yarns on Etsy. That was an 85% merino, 15% nylon, I think, yeah. So I chose to use 2.5mm needles for my gauge swatch. I've done all my measurements. I'm not going to share all of the measurements what I actually did, but I'll show you my swatch and my foot outline that we have to do. So this is my foot outline. I literally had to draw around both feet as close as I can. So I've now got a black pen all over my feet. And we had to do other things like measuring how tall we want the sock to be, what the circumference of the cuff needs to be as well. So I just used an old cardboard box here from Boots to do that. So I did that, and then I'm sitting on my spare room floor with my blocking mats, and here is my gauge swatch. So we were told to do a fake knitting in the round swatch, which I've done before. So basically you use your circular needles, and then instead of knitting back and forth in stockinette stitch, you knit and then you slide them to the end of your needles and then bring the yarn round so you've got all loops on the back. Then I've blocked it and I've just snipped them so it would lie as flat as I can, pinned it out, not to stretch it but just so it didn't roll. And then we had to measure stitches and rows per inch. So this gauge swatch, I'm getting about 8¼ stitches for every inch and 11 rows, which is kind of in the middle of what we were asked to aim for. So I've done all of this week's tasks and I'm ready for week 2. Still no knitting yet in week 2. So this week we had to use our measurement sheet. This is from week 1, and we had a 10 pages of maths to do to work out measurements for the pattern. So Natalie in the videos explained her kind of concept for the perfect fit sock, and how the measurements that we took last week are going to help us to make a sock that fits us, or we could have taken measurements so we could then make socks for someone else. So the videos went through all the maths that we had to do, and a lot of it, to be honest, it did make sense that it's using the number of stitches and rows per inch to calculate how big each portion of the sock is going to be. We started with number of stitches, so we worked out like cuff stitches, leg stitches and so on, and then we also thought about how and where we're going to increase and decrease throughout the sock, and then we talked about row gauge and how we're going to use our measurements to work out the number of rows that we'll need, for example for the leg or for the sock itself and for the toe decreases. So most of it I felt was really doable. I think some people found it difficult, but I think that was more because it's a virtual instruction. I think if we'd been working in person, which isn't possible because obviously Natalie is American and people are based all over the world doing this, so I think if it had been in person people would have struggled less, but that's just it. But the videos I thought were as clear as they could be for virtual instruction. And we've also got the Discord channel, which is included as part of the course, and that's been really busy this week with people asking lots of questions. I did have one question. There was one part where I thought I'd got something wrong, essentially, and I asked in the Discord if I was right or had I missed something, and Natalie got back to me. Despite the time difference, Natalie got back to me really quickly and explained kind of it was a bit of a misunderstanding on my part and something that she felt that she'd perhaps missed. So that was really good that we can get feedback really quickly. I've also really enjoyed seeing everybody's gauge swatches. There's like a swatch show and tell thread that we can use, so it was really good to see the different yarn that people have chosen and how we're all pretty much getting similar size swatches and everything. So yeah, 10 pages of maths. A lot of it was really simple maths, adding, dividing, multiplying and so on. So that was, it wasn't I didn't think it was too difficult. But I did want to show you, I bought a new project bag. This was from Siobhan's Crafts. Love Mario. And then the inside is also Mario themed as well. So that's ready for next week. Next week we are going to start knitting. We're doing the cuff and the leg measurement, and I am really looking forward to getting knitting. I've got my yarn bowl ready. I've got my yarn ready from when I did my swatch, and I know I said in the week 1 section, but this yarn is from Wildflower Yarns, and the colour is Unicorn Christmas. It's not massively festive though, is it? So we're all good. It's finally time to knit in week 3. Hooray! So the videos are actually released a little bit early overnight on Saturday for me. And a lot of people on Discord have been talking about how the cast on method that we've got to use is really tricky. So what I've done first of all is I've got some really big needles and some scrap yarn, and I have done a little practice of the cast on. I don't know why it's got an extra loop over it, but there you go. I've had a little practice of the cast on first before using my sock yarn, so now it's time to have a go at the real thing. Okay, I've got my tripod out this time, so I have cast on the number of stitches that I calculated last week. I think it's looking pretty neat. I'm quite happy with how it's looking so far. There's some under my hand as well. So now it's time to join them in the round and do my ribbing. So now it's time to do a rapid increase round and then crack on with the leg. Increases and preparation is all finished and I've been told to try it on, so here it is. It doesn't feel, on Discord Natalie said it should feel comfortably snug, and I wouldn't say it's snug. It's not uncomfortable, it is quite comfortable at the moment, but yeah, I'm just a bit worried my measurements might not have been accurate, but I suppose we'll find out once the heel is on next week. Week 4. Let's knit a heel. Okay, so the first thing I've noticed is the first part we were asked to check we'd got the right number of stitches from last week, and I've noticed that I have one fewer stitch than I should have. So on the Discord somebody else has had this and they've decided to rip it all out right back to the increase row that we did here, like straight after the ribbon. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to do my heel because that number of stitches is correct. So I'm going to work the heel, and then I think I'll just have to fudge the gusset decreases next week. But yeah, never mind. A bit dodgy counting on my part, but I think the sock felt a little bit loose last week anyway, so we'll try that. Let's try and actually get on with the heel now and hope there's no more dodgy counting. So I'm almost at the halfway stage. The next row I've got to do is called the boomerang row, and that is apparently dead halfway. But I've been doing short rows with twin stitches, so I'm at the halfway point here. My heel is complete, so compared to last week that was a lot less knitting. It needed more thinking time, obviously, because we were learning new stitches and last week was just round and round for the leg. But I think I downloaded the Fish Lips Kiss Heel pattern before and read it and just found it really overwhelming, so it was really good that it was broken down into the smaller steps in these videos. But it looks good and I'm just going to try it on now. It's looking like an actual sock. I'm going to poke my eye out. But yeah, it's probably only taken me 3 hours to do, but that wasn't solid knitting all of that time. I've stopped and had some lunch and things. So yeah, it feels good. Yeah, I'm excited to move on to, I say it every week, I'm excited to move on. I'm looking forward to doing the foot and getting more of a gauge of fit, but I'm going to see now whether how this feels now that I've got the heel on. Not the greatest angle, but you can see that it's on, it's sitting really nicely. It's perhaps not pulled up quite as high as it could be, but I don't want it to ping off here. So yeah, it feels good. It doesn't feel as loose around here as it did last week, so I'm pleased with that. Welcome to week 5, where we are working on the foot. The end of the sock is so close. Well, it's going to be so close when I've done all of the knitting this week. So I have done things slightly differently. to what I've done in the last weeks of knitting, that I watched all the videos first because I felt that a lot of the knitting would be quite straightforward this week. There's a lot of just kind of knitting round and round with a few increases thrown in. So what I've done is, so far I have done the gusset. So after the heel we had to do some gusset decreases, and I've managed to sort out my mistake from last week. So I have already done, if I hold this up you can see, oh it's not very clear on camera actually, there is a stitch marker here. It's a bit blurry, but there is a stitch marker. So I've done my decreases, so now I've got to do an extra ½ inch of just straight up stocking stitch, and then we're going to move into some foot decreases, and then I've just got lots of going round and round and round to go. So I'll put in some knitting shots, but a lot of it is just going to be go for it this week. There's been nothing complicated here, it's all just about getting the fit right. So let's crack on with the next ½ inch. My gusset and foot decreases, and at that point Natalie advised us to try it on. So I've taken a picture which I'll put up here of how it looks, and to be honest I think it's looking, this definitely, the first sock is not going to be a perfect fit. That I'm thinking it feels a little bit too loose, and I know that I haven't done the whole foot and everything, but I feel like there's not the sock, I know when I've made socks before they've been really tight, there's not been that kind, there's been a lot of stretched out stitches in the leg, and at the minute I'm not sure if it's just that I'm not used to that or if it is just a little bit too big. So at this point I just wanted to document really for me that at this point in the sock I'm not sure, that I think my stitch count might be too high in the leg and potentially round the front of the ankle. Yeah, I used to tape measure that in hindsight I don't think it was necessarily the most accurate, so I have bought a new one since then, and I think at this point I feel like before I kind of ploughed onto another pair of socks that I would want to go back over all of the measurements that I did around my foot initially and perhaps rework the formula, because I feel like it is a little bit loose. Knitting wise everything's going really well, and the instructions have been really great, but I think it's just my kind of measurements really. That's like my gut feeling at this point in the sock, where I've just gone past the heel and getting into the arch of the foot. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how I feel once it's completely finished next week, but at this point where I've got 40 rounds to go yet of foot, but at this point it's just feeling that little bit too loose. Had a bit of an outfit change, a different day. Yesterday I took my sock with me to the dentist, had to wait for ages, and got quite a bit of the foot done. I'm about 2/3 of the way there now. It is a genuinely filthy day outside, so what better thing to do than sit here and get those final foot rows finished and catch up on some of the Zoom lessons, the Zoom webinars that Natalie's been leading. I have done the 40 rounds for the foot, so I'm going to show you my foot. Apologies in advance for the foot shot. So you can see it's fitting quite nicely on the heel there. It's coming right up if I move the camera down a little bit, you can see that it's coming right up onto my little toe here. And actually the excess that I was worried about last week, kind of here, doesn't seem quite as pronounced now that we've got the full sock here. So this isn't the greatest shot, but it does feel, it feels better than I do still feel that I try not to stab myself with the needles. I do still feel that I know we're going to talk, once we've finished the whole sock, we're going to talk about how we can change the formula so we can make two socks with similar stitch counts, so we're not always having to remember one set of numbers for one foot and one for the other. So I do think when I measured my other foot, that was smaller. So I do think that if I wanted to come down 4 stitches, then I could. There is room to do that, definitely. But it is much better fitting than other 4-ply, you know, like sock weight yarn socks that I've made. And I think the thing that I liked best about the way that we've done the maths for this is that I knew exactly how many rows I needed for the foot, because I think that is the most tiresome part of knitting a sock when you're following someone else's recipe or pattern, because a lot of the time it's knit until it reaches this part of your foot, and let's be honest, the foot is the longest part of the sock. It can get a bit boring if you're doing like a long stretch of knitting, and I've done it where I've just thought, do you know what, it's close enough, and then I've put the toe on and it's not been. So it's been better. You know, I might change my mind next week once it's got a toe on, but I do think it's better to know how many rounds you need for the foot. So I'm really pleased so far. The toe is coming on Saturday, and I'd really like to, the toe videos that is, and I'd really like to get that done and get started on the second sock. Week 6 is here. It's time to put on a toe. I'm excited to finish my first sock. So I have watched the first couple of videos. I had to decide which shape of toe I'm going to make based on how my real foot actually looks. So what I'm going to be making is an ergonomic toe, which more to be revealed as we knit along. I've now got to check whether I've got the right number of stitches that I should at this point, and make sure that they're equally distributed across the 2 needles, because we have changed our stitch count as we've gone along. So I'm going to do that first, and then we'll see what knitting awaits. I've got the right number of stitches, but it took me a lot longer to count them than it really should have done. Out. This is a bit awkward, but I finished my toe. I've got to watch the end of the video to see what to do, but I have tried it on. Let's have a look. Here it is. I'm not sure how well you can see that, but you can see I haven't grafted the toe together yet, but I'm really pleased because as I was knitting the toe, the boxy bit, if you like, looked absolutely massive while I was doing it, but now it's on my foot, it feels right. In fact, I think it might even be a row too short, but we'll see. I'm going to watch the next bit, see what to do about finishing, and then I'll try it on again. Okay, so sock number 1 is completely finished. I have grafted the toe and I've left my markers on for now, but it feels good. The toe is quite a good fit. It's a good fit around here. Looking at the side here, I think it is a little bit pointy just there, but I think that's probably because I haven't quite pulled it up right. I do wonder if my cuff is a tiny bit loose actually. I think it does when I put my foot like this. I've knocked the tripod. I am getting a bit of wrinkling here. So I do think this might be why this is kind of meant. I've got this, I can't see very well. I've got this pointy bit here, you can see, and that's too high now. This is probably in the right place, but I do have this pointy bit and it just feels, if it was perhaps a touch tighter, that would be a better fit. I have got some wrinkling, but as I think I've said pretty much all the way through these updates, that I did think the leg was going to be a little bit big. I've decided what I'm going to do is, rather than remeasure my other foot now, I'm going to knit the second sock with my original measurements and try it out. So then I've been through the whole process. Then once I've done that, I'm going to remeasure, and I think I could definitely, I think this was 76 stitches in the leg. I have got quite wide ankles. This was 76, and I definitely think, Natalie said we could try going down in multiples of 4. So I'm pretty sure that I could go down to a 72 here and still get a good fit, but it looks nice here. I'm not sure what's happening here. It looks good. It looks good. I'm pleased. So sock number 1 is finished, and here we have my finished perfect fit socks. Now I have washed and blocked these, and I did follow the instructions. Because I did the ergonomic toe, I can tell which is right and left. So this one is a left foot, and you can see they do look different. They are a slightly different shape to other hand knit socks that I've seen, but I am, as I think I've said throughout this vlog, that I really like them, and they do fit so much better than the other socks that I've knitted in the past. That was pair number 1 for me. Since completing the course, I've also knit a second pair. It's got a loose thread. These are for my partner Andrew, who specifically asked for a pair, and obviously I used everything that I'd learned and measured his feet, swatched the yarn which he chose for himself, and he's really pleased with these. He these are kind of if you compare them to mine, they are quite a bit shorter, but this is the length that he wanted, and he's also got an ergonomic toe. These were blocked last weekend, so he's really pleased with those. And I have already started a second pair for me. These are in a 75-25 blend of yarn, so that meant that I did have to do my calculations again, because my tension, my row gauge and stitch gauge was different to the original pair that I did. So let's do the real talk here. I can't remember exactly how much the course cost because of the conversion pounds to dollars, but it was, I think it was in about $250. So obviously it is a lot of money for knitting, isn't it, really? But I was in a fortunate enough position that I could afford to do that. And also I tried to see it as an investment, because I'd bought lots of sock yarn hoping that I would be able to knit all of the socks, and I felt demotivated by the first couple of pairs that I'd made, because I wasn't really asking for perfect fit from them. I was just asking for fit, and it wasn't they just didn't really. And so in that sense, it means that by making this investment that I've been able to make the most of my yarn that I've already bought and bought since, obviously, because that goes without saying that I just love buying. Well, me and my mum are both as bad as each other, I think, at this point. I liked the instruction and the videos, and we've got lifetime access to the videos that we can go back to them. And I also enjoyed the Discord throughout the course, and we will still have access to the Discord. I can't remember whether I actually explained what Discord is, but it's essentially like a chat room, but it's only for the people who have actually paid and have access to the course. During the 6 weeks of the videos being released, that was busy, and there was a lot of chatter and people sharing their experiences and questions and issues that came up, and lots of pictures. Obviously now the course is finished, that things are still being released. Like, we've had a different toe type released, and we've had a shorty sock pattern added, but the Discord has basically gone super quiet now, and I think people are checking in every so often, but hopefully I'm hoping people will share, because it's been nice to have that community. So that's been a really valuable part of it. And there's the Zoom Q&A sessions with Natalie as well were really good. So in terms of, would I recommend it? Yes, I would. But it's worth knowing that you will have homework each week if you want to try and keep up with it. But obviously, if you're taking it in your own time and you're not bothered about keeping up with the videos as they're being released, then you have got that option as well. So you can play it however you want. You've got that freedom, and you will have the Discord whenever you get to your sock knitting. The Discord will be there if you need to catch up. And I'm also really pleased that things are still being added to it. Like, Natalie's going to add a toe up pattern, so that'll be a different skill to add to my knitting repertoire. So that is it for this week's video. I am going to go and carry on with my sock. I'm a sock knitter now. I take socks to Starbucks. I can't knit in the car, but I can take socks on journeys, and it's nice to have that to do. And I'm looking forward to getting some wear out of these. The weather has warmed up here now, so it's probably the wrong time of year, but it's nice to have a portable and a simple knitting project where there's lots of just plain knitting. I'm also looking forward to applying my knowledge to colourwork socks and to pattern socks as well. So those are going to be my next steps. I'm going to feel brave. But thank you for watching today's video. I hope that you found it useful, and if you're weighing up doing the course, that this has been informative and you've had an inside glance into what it's like. And I'll see you next time. Bye.